Stop. Consider yourself warned. You are about to enter into a place that is not for the faint of heart. It is a place that is rooted in faith and reason. So if you are up for the challenge and are ready to do some spiritual spelunking, you are welcome to try. Welcome to Pat King's Man Cave.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day, whatever time of day it is. Welcome to Pat King's Man Cave Show. This is Pat King, of course. A couple of weeks ago, I had a great episode that was, I was really on fire. I was really knocking it out of the park. And then when I was done, I went to end the session. I do this on Zoom right now. I went to go end the session and said meeting over, all that. And I was waiting for the converting or the file saving thing that converts to the format so I could send it. And there was no recording. I didn't hit record. So I'm still a novice at this part of it and trying to do it right. But when I tried to, I then realized what I had done, and I went on to record. I had another episode I had to record with Dave Fortin of Along the Way, and on his podcast show that he does audio, and I do video and audio because why not look at this gorgeous face? No, anyway, I make fun of myself because who else will? My mother loved me. That's all I care about. So anyway, when I was done recording with Dave, we did a podcast on patriotism and the Fourth Degree Knights. That's their motto. That's the initiate. That's what the Fourth Degree Knights are about: patriotism, God, country, family, and the Fourth Degree Knights it's a great resemblance. They serve at funerals and at high masses and celebrations and things where the bishops are presiding over at masses, events, stuff like that. And it's really pretty cool. They have the nice uniforms. They've changed recently. There's some dispute on whether they like them or not, but it's what it is. And you either change with the times, and that kind of brings up what I'm going to talk about in a way. Of course, I use a lot of my journey in these talks because I lived it, I witnessed it, and I found all the things I did wrong, all the ways I went in error and didn't do things the way I should have. But it's good to, when you go off path and find your way back. And this is why I do this. This is why I do these shows. I make no money on it. I'd like to, just show that my efforts are being placed a value on, and they're being heard and listened to. But one thing about so anyway, I re-recorded that episode I didn't record, and in all honesty, it wasn't as good. I stumbled more trying to remember what I had said in the podcast I didn't record and it didn't come out. Even my buddy David said that I kind of left him hanging in space or went down a path too much and repeated myself a little more. And I love that. I appreciate that constructive criticism. But, it's just better. So I'm one of these guys. I don't record. I don't have a script. Sometimes I'll read stuff or I'll have an interview that's a little different. But when I'm just doing these on my own like this, I usually I think about them a little bit. I pray about it. Whatever gets inspired in me is what I usually end up talking about. And today's topic is going to be convince. And Dr. Ray Garendi was on Bookmark on EWTN's Bookmark, and he was talking about his latest book. And he made a comment that really, I was going on at Sunday. I'm on my way to Mass. I listen to Salt and Light Radio, EWTN is their primary source or content for Salt and Light Radio. We only have a little bit of local stuff, and then the rest is EWTN or Ave Maria or different content providers, Catholic Answer, stuff like that. And so Bookmark was playing. It's always on at 8:00 on my way to Mass, and or 8:30. Sorry, 7:30 on my way to Mass, because I do rosary at 8:30 before Mass at 9. And so I'm on my way driving. I live out in the country, so it's like a 20-minute drive to church. And so I get to listen to the Bookmark show, and usually some good, interesting books. And Dr. Ray's on there, and he's quite a character. And the Jack, the interviewer, asked him, I think that's his name, Jack. Maybe someone. Anyway, you'll figure it out. Go listen to it. You'll see who's doing the interviewing, the Bookmark. So Dr. Ray was asked, what's the toughest thing about counseling people? He's a psychiatrist. And so what's the toughest thing about counseling others? And he says, convincing them to do the right thing, to take the hard stand, to stand up to your children or whatever the cause is. And boy, that really, really hit me, because that's so true. It's so true. And so I'm going to talk about both aspects. I'm not a psychiatrist. This is just how I've lived my life. And when he said that, it's like all of a sudden all these thoughts come rolling through my mind about where I've been, and the culture where I've been, how I left the church, how I returned, those things. And I'm sure in your life, you think about these things. You think about how you got down that path, or how someone got into drugs and drinking and doing all these things, because some people are very good at convincing others to do things for them, or do things that on their own they wouldn't have done. And some people are easily convinced to do the wrong things, and some people can be easily convinced to do the right things. But more often than not, it's you're more easily convinced to do the wrong thing. Case in point, someone wants to be hanging out with friends in school, high school, college, whatever, and maybe they're insecure, they're not very popular or well known, and someone has taken an interest in you, and you and some people sometimes they take interest because they're predatory. They need more people to join their ranks. That's what the devil does. The devil can be all nice and sweet and polite and pleasant and good meaning in the beginning, but it's how perverts, how predatory men and women prey on young children, or gang members, gang leaders get new gang members. I'm old enough to, even though I'm not a psychologist, I'm old enough to have lived in a world that you see how good, well-meaning children, well-behaved, well-educated, good souls, good people, obeying mom and dad, doing the right things, good athletes, can end up being druggies, alcoholics, prostitution, leading to sex, and giving up their ways. A lot of it happens anymore in colleges. You have a great kid going to a college, and now mom and dad aren't there to kind of regulate them, and they want to test out the world. They want to check out the world. They want to explore things. And so whether you're an attractive woman or unattractive woman, or attractive man or unattractive man, you're going to find people that want to lead you astray, because they need members to be in there, because they're hopeless people for the most part. or they got a drug to sell. They got something to sell. A pimp wants to pimp you out. There's a purpose. There's an agenda that's not good. And what they are good at is persuasion, convincing. Letting them, convincing people. Hey, come to our party. And then they get you there. Hey, I'm glad to see you. Oh man, it's so good to see you. You must be new on campus, and blah blah blah. Yeah. And so they, hey, want to have fun? Come here. This will not going to hurt you. Take one of these. You'll have a lot of fun. I had people offer me drugs, smoke. Mostly it was pot back in my high school days. I was in high school in the late 70s, and it was mostly pot and alcohol. I didn't even drink much. I got drunk one time at 16, and then I didn't drink again until I was in my 18s, because sports and obeying mom, single mom raising 7 of us. I respected her, and I didn't want to be that kid, be a burden. I was a good kid. I was a good boy. I worked, played sports. For the most part, I did my homework. Kind of hated it, but I wasn't easily convinced to do things that went against my nature, that went against God. I was an altar boy, and I actually considered it. It wasn't a lot of people trying to influence me to be a priest or a deacon, but I kind of looked into that. But recruiting for that, the people around that there just weren't many people encouraging you to do those things or helping you discern your vocation. But there are a hell of a lot more, and I'm using that word very usefully. It's a hell of a lot more people out there trying to lead you off the right path. And it goes back to that one lesson I learned back when I was in 7th or 8th grade with Mr. Sheen. He set me aside and another guy named Mark about, excuse me, about being leaders, that we were natural born leaders, that whatever we did, people would follow, kids would follow us. And he sat us down, talked to us. He said, you go down this path and you'll take people with you, or you go down this path, people are going to follow also. No matter what you did, you're going to lead people. So think about your path. So that weighed heavily throughout the rest of my junior high and high school days, and really throughout my entire life. I gave it less credence as I got older because I wasn't around people on a regular daily basis like you are in school, and I didn't go to college. So I didn't feel like I had that much influence on people as I got after my adult years. But I still have always remembered that lesson I learned. And so I wasn't easily convinced to do things. I don't mean to stammer, but it's okay. It's Man Cave. It's my show. I can say what I want. I don't want to be vulgar or anything like that, but I really liked this one girl in high school. She was part of our Explorer Scout troop, and she was older. So, what was I? Was I 9th grade? I think I was 9th grade, maybe 10th. I think it was 9th grade. So you're what, 15, 16, 15 years old? I think I was 9th grade. I'll go back and look at my dates. I was born in 61, late 60, December. So I may have, it was summertime. So I may have been 15, going to go on 16. And I really liked this girl a lot. And, we were in the same Explorer Scout troop, so we spent time together. We got to know each other. She liked me, at least I thought, and I liked her. And she was seductive, and I don't know if it was on purpose or just the fact she liked me and wanted to get to know me. But an older woman, I was easily convinced that doing more than holding hands and kissing was good. And okay, so we were getting more and more into the more heavily petting, more of the further down than just kissing, holding hand. It was, I'm a young man, young boy, 15. I don't know what you are, teenage boy, hormones racing. This girl's cute, likes me. And first girl to really express any deeper emotional feelings towards me. And it led to a one-time situation. And because I was new and she obviously was more experienced, things went faster than a lot faster. And of course, she was greatly disappointed. At least I felt embarrassed. And maybe that was a good thing, because Catholic man, Catholic boy, altar server, I felt tremendous remorse after that happened. And I abstained. In fact, that was pretty much the end of our relationship. Her reaction, my guilt, and that was the end. And my thoughts went immediately to offending God. And I shortly after that went to confession. Then I abstained, and we were no longer even social, and probably a good thing that her reaction was what it was, like disappointment or like, is that all, whatever it was, I felt that, and it was a good thing. So it convinced me that right there convinced me that what I was doing was wrong, and I should avoid that near occasion again. So the relationship didn't go any further after that. And that's, tell you, to be honest with you, first time I've ever talked about other than in confession. And I really felt tremendous remorse and guilt. And it didn't take me much convincing to go to confession. So I was still an altar boy and a practicing Catholic, and I failed. I was a fallen man. I was a fallen young man, and it changed the way it did change the way I treated young girls after that. Not in a bad way, but how I didn't let relationships go too far. If I started having, I had a lot of girlfriends that I went to proms or dances with, at that once I felt like I was going to go back down that path, once I had stronger feelings, because I wasn't sure what love was. I didn't understand love, that connection. I had feelings. A lot of them were hormonal. Anyway, it kept me from doing more throughout my high school years till later on in high school when I became a man and 18 and wanted to, thought I was in love. I don't want to go down that path, but it shows you how easily someone can be convinced to do something against their own will. Okay, did I will it? I put myself in that circumstance that it happened. So that's why the church teaches, stay away from the near occasion of sin, to avoid those things. Avoid, if you're an alcoholic, you don't go to bars and sit with friends and test your strength, your willpower. Maybe when you're 28 years sober, but I think even if you're an alcoholic, you should avoid those things. Now, if you've got friends and you're around an event, a party, a social gathering, and people drink, that's a little different. And most people know, if they know you, they know that you're a recovering alcoholic. They won't even offer. I can't tell you how many times throughout my high school and youth I was offered beer or pot. And I had the strength and resolve to say no. And where my weakest was with girls. Not a father in our house to talk about, those things. I didn't have a godly man in my house or my life. Father Dodds, our priest, parish priest at the time in Twin. But that temptation, that part was really I was all alone on. Can't talk to your mom about it. I guess you could, but like I say, my mom was the worst father I had, but the worst father I had, but the only one I had. And she did her best. and I don't resent her for the stance she took on things, my punishments and stuff like that. I deserved them all for one thing, but I was easily convinced, and then I convinced myself. God helped convince me through guilt, remorse, that these things were not good for me. But that's how easy it is for someone who's not convicted of their beliefs, that don't have really strong principled beliefs in their faith or in God, that sin is wrong. It's how we end up accepting the LGBTQA, whatever, A, B, C, D, and E, whatever letters they want to add to it. We don't want to be deemed intolerant. So you don't say anything, you don't do anything, and that in its way showing your tolerance towards it. And it's love the sinner, not the sin. You should hate the sin. You should be intolerant towards the sin, towards the act, the behavior, but not the person. I don't think most people are convinced that they know the difference, that you can love the person but hate the sin. And Jesus loved the person, hated the sin. He would always tell them, go and sin no more. We need to figure out a way to do that ourselves. So the title of this episode should be Convinced, ? Convincing. Because when I left the church, I was convinced by what I saw. I convinced myself by what I saw from the priest and some of the parishioners of our churches, that the church itself, the magisterium, was going down a wrong path. When I convinced myself because I didn't do any other research. I didn't have an in-depth belief and understanding that the church was this strength, was this in unity with Christ. It was priests and lay people that were distorting, as the devil always does, distorting the truth about the church. And I was easily led astray. I convinced myself that the church was changing and was no longer the same church I grew up in. And that made it easy for me to leave, because then I didn't have to convince my soon-to-be wife that the church was a true church of Christ. I didn't have to fight that or argue it. It was easier just to walk away, find a church that was a little bit more neutral between, she's Southern Baptist, I was Catholic, and those two just never will agree on anything if they just look at the churches as they think they are. The Catholics, I don't think so bad about the Southern Baptists as the Southern Baptists think about the Catholics. But the Catholics have found a way through the magisterium that all baptized Christians are one in the body. They just lack, or they're just not in full communion with the church. And we pray for them to join in full communion with the church. There's converts all the time from Protestantism, different sects, different denominations. I hear some say that there's 33,000 plus 50,000, whatever the numbers are. There's a lot of distorted Christians out there. Some even think that abortion is justified, right? Gay marriage is right. I mean, you got gay, homosexual, lesbian preachers in the head of churches, Methodists and some Baptists, and you got gay deacons or women preachers and stuff like this. You got a lot of the non-denominational churches have a lot of female preachers, and nothing against their understanding of theology, their love for it, but you can't convince me that Christ wanted women to lead churches, because if he did, it would have been 8 men and 5 women, or 4 women, or 6 and 6, or even 1. No, he had 12. And when Judas betrayed Christ, and they felt that God called 12 apostles to lead, they filled that with a 12th, with I believe Barnabas, not a scholar, but when they elected another disciple to step up as an apostle of Christ, they did that, and they kept to 12. Now, St. Paul technically is not an apostle of the 12. Would be 13, of course, but he was chosen by Christ to spread the gospel, and wrote more of the letters, and wrote a significant part of the New Testament, and also brought a heck of a lot more pagans and Jews, non-Christians, to know Christ, and to become Christians, become baptized Christians. And the point of my topic here is that, have you convinced yourself that going to confession is an obligation called upon when you fall out of favor with Christ, when you offend him with your mortal sins? Do you feel the remorse that I felt back when I had my first dalliance in a sexual relationship? And did you have that tremendous remorse afterwards, where you wanted to go to confession right away? Boy, that was the toughest. That was the first really remorseful sin that I believe I committed at that age, and I really had a tremendous feeling of separation from God. And of course, that first time leads to other times, and it gets easier to be acceptable of your sin when you especially when you leave the church. I ended up living with my fiance before we got married, and we justified it by we saving on expenses, and she had an apartment, it was costing her a lot, and we were buying a house together, and so we convinced ourselves, and whatever you do, you've justified, you find a way around it. And I was leaving the church anyway, so they don't have confession non-denominational. So I just go out in the wilderness, confess it to God, or sit in silence and ask God forgiveness. And yeah, that's the same thing, right? Oh boy, let me tell you, it's not, because I held on to those sins, even though I talked to God about it, went to church regularly as a non-denominational Christian again. And it wasn't until I returned to the church that I went to confession again for the first time after a 30-year absence, 25, 30-year absence, did I really feel the weight of those burdens, the weight of that cross, the weight of that sinfulness lift my shoulders, that I could, I lived in sin for dang near 30 years, mortal sins. And I'm a very happy, optimistic guy. I try to be fun and everything, but it's amazing how angry I used to get, and how resentful I got of others, and how jealous I became, and how, I earned it, it's mine. How narcissistic I was, how mean I was to my own wife, and argumentative and angry and resentful and spiteful, all everything you can think of. It's amazing how that being out of favor have offended God, and being, I was still praying, I was still going to church, I was still kind of read the Bible, but I didn't pray on my own. I didn't have a consistent reading habit of the Bible. I didn't have anything. I went to church on Sundays because I got kids, and I convinced myself that you go for your kids to lead them to be good. Now it's my duty to teach my kids to be good kids, good people, good citizens, honorable people. But when you're in sin, it's that connection between you and God is it's God's there. You're not. God's always one. He's like, oh, you're so close. Come on back. Come get to know me more. God's always pulling for you. He's always trying to ring you in, to bring you back to the fold. You're that one lost sheep that keeps, as it'd be like if Christ kept chasing that sheep, looking for that one sheep. That's what he's doing. He's searching for you, and you keep you see him. It's like I raise cows and I raise pigs, and I have a new calf. And when it was a couple of days old, I could pick it up and bring it in. But after a while, even though I was hold it and I'd touch its head, and let me get near it. 4 or 5 days, 6, 7 days later, I couldn't even get the thing. As soon as I'd approach it, gone. It'd bolt or hide behind Mama. Mama then would get up, puff her chest up, and look at me like, "Don't you touch my kid." And we get that way, and it was like, you're not chasing Christ. Christ is chasing you. And somehow you're convinced it's the other way around, or you're trying to evade the actual act of confession by thinking that just going off in prayer somewhere you can resolve all your troubles, when you haven't really come to Christ himself face to face through a priest. Yes, you're going to another man, but he's in persona Christi. He's in that moment at that time representing Jesus Christ. He is that liaison between you and Christ. He's that closest connection you'll ever find, because when you speak, I don't know how I got on confession, but when you speak to God and you get an answer back from someone who's listening intently to everything you're saying, and you hear the words, "I forgive you, my child," it is a great feeling. It is, and 30 years of not having that connection with Christ, although I thought I did, it was when I returned back to the church and went to confession for the first time, and then the second time shortly thereafter, because I just hadn't, 30 years was all built up. And then I had to really, once I okay, I got for the first 2 steps of a 10 staircase steps. And it was like, okay, I'm getting close. God, I still want to chase you. Christ is the one following and trying to get you, and you keep darting off like that calf I have.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Pat King's Man Cave, a weekly podcast discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. A product of Salt and Light Catholic Radio in Boise, Idaho. To learn more about our ministry, please visit our website at saltandlightradio.com.